per hand in the middle. And you can tell the title, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, but for our first decade, we were just called the National Brotherhood because we were only limited to the United States. In 1899, Canada joined the Union, and that's when we became international. So for our first 8 years, we were the NBEW.
And that famous Founding Fathers photograph, you have that original document over here, right?
Oh, yes.
In the case. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, the first 10 men, which is also why we have 10 lightning bolts on the IBEW seal to symbolize the 10 delegates. It wasn't always like that. The original seal was the left hand, and it had a random number of bolts. But eventually in the year 2000, they wanted to standardize it and give it some symbolism. So they made 10 bolts to symbolize our 10 founding fathers.
Very cool.
This is sort of our actual first section of the museum. It's a general history of the IBEW. We have a very brief timeline at the bottom, tracking IBEW history on the bottom of the timeline, and then up top, just general labor history. And then artifacts throughout the age of electricity, throughout our history, that sort of showcase the diversity of electrical work. These are 2 field telephones used by soldiers in World War I and soldiers in World War II. Wow. As a fun little note, the IBEW performed 95% of all electrical contracting work during World War II, thanks in part to the efforts of our International Secretary, Joseph Keenan, who made sure that the work was done by professional, qualified union members. And through his efforts, he was given the United States Medal of Merit, the highest medal that any civilian can earn from the President of the United States. So wow. IBEW has had a very important legacy in our country and a very patriotic importance as well.
Well, that's really great.
Yeah, we are.
So, and you do have a lineman statue.
We do have a lineman statue. I mean, our earliest members were linemen and inside men. We got our start in electrical trade through telegraph lines. Telegraph lines would follow the railroads throughout the country. That was the first instance of using electricity to power people's homes, to power businesses. And those 10 men were linemen and inside men, the first 10 delegates. And then after that, the electrification of the West, the New Deal policies that were passed during the Great Depression really helped electrify the country, give us a lot of work.
FDR, right?
FDR was vital in that effort. But yeah, linemen, IBEW and the railroad have had this sort of symbiotic relationship. We've always kind of come together and gone together through our industries. And in fact, this is also one of our oldest objects. This is the first portable telephone, believe it or not, made of wood. This was used by railway engineers as they would cross the country on the tracks. You could pop out in any city, connect us to a utility pole, press the button on the side, and it would connect you to the local telephone operator. And then you'd say, I'd like to talk with so-and-so party, and they would redirect your call, but you could carry this around and make free telephone calls no matter where you were.
And that
is our affiliation certificate that was signed by the IBEW when we affiliated with the AFL. And right after we were founded in November 28, 1891, Henry Miller took our charter documents and I believe went to Florida, where the AFL was holding their convention, and had us submit an article of affiliation with AFL to make sure that we were legitimate and within the umbrella of the union movement. This is a much nicer version that was eventually done about 10 years later to make up for the first edition that was a little, has very polished signatures. But yeah, we've been a member of the AFL since the very beginning. And I remember at the time, the AFL was only 5 years old when IBEW was founded. I mean, this was the birth of the union movement in the United States. And all these organizations that we take for granted now were brand new on the scene. But IBEW has been there every step of the way to lead the charge.
So I'm gonna.
Any other?
Yeah. Can we walk over here?
Oh, sure.
Welcome. This is one section we haven't looked at yet. It's kind of
I recall this the jewelry case because it's glass walls on both sides, but this sort of showcases some of the very miscellaneous objects in our collection. You're an electrical museum, you have to have light bulbs. That's what everyone really associates electricity with. These are some of the earliest light bulbs made, a couple Edison bulbs, not made by Edison himself, but through his company. And they are vacuum sealed, and they each have a literal piece of cotton at the bottom to act as a filament. You needed that vacuum seal so the cotton wouldn't catch fire. There's a whole history behind that, but you have to have some light bulbs in your museum if you want to even discuss electricity. That's what people expect. So make sure the Henry Miller Museum has a few light bulbs.
we do have some actually.
Excellent. And then we have a few random artifacts, mostly donated by members. This is a handmade crystal radio. You'd slide the track across the coils in the top, and that would activate different radio frequencies. And hopefully, if someone was broadcasting, you have the ability to listen in.
I think this is from Mark Bruggen-Johann when he first started as an
This
apprentice.
is probably, yes. Community director. Not sure you appreciate that.
No. No. Well, actually,
That takes you back.
This was donated by a local one member, Mike said, which is kind of cool for me.
Yeah.
Not for anybody else, but for me.
Some very kind of interesting objects. I mean, sort of cool. This lightning arrestor. This would be installed at the top of a building. It wouldn't harness lightning for energy, but it would help disperse it from the top of the building to the bottom. One very fascinating object is this submarine cable. This was installed by local 3 members in 1986. This cable ran from mainland Manhattan to Liberty Island, and it powered the Statue of Liberty after it was restored in 1985. Local 3 members installed this, and it even has a patriotic color scheme with the red, white, and blue seal on the outside.
That's very
and
cool.
This section was cut off and thankfully donated to the museum.
Can we walk out into the last
yeah.
case that we haven't seen yet?
All right, so this is our leadership display. We have our presidents lined up on top and Secretary of Treasurers on bottom, and then we have 3 cases filled with objects that are associated with the officers seen above. These are artifacts that are keepsakes, but also symbolic of significant accomplishments done by the executive officers, groundbreaking hats from the international office, pension agreements, trainers' manuals.
So we had one section in our history where we had a very prolific, what I would call a very prolific local one business manager, and he was all about documenting his actions and his accomplishments, which thankfully, and we have several pictures of Gordon Freeman.
Okay.
We have boxes
Yeah.
of pictures with the international officer staff from that time period. I think I've shared some of that older stuff with you. We've got a few sporadic photographs from early times.
Here's the Presidential Medal for Merit I mentioned earlier, given to Brother Keenan, National Secretary, for his efforts during World War II. Some of our older electrical tools of the trade. Again, nothing, I mean, this is one of the first mechanized powered drills, but everything else is manually powered. The materials used are porcelain, wood, and metal. I mean, there were no synthetic materials, there was no plastic. Even the screwdriver is just one piece of iron. Twist the top and there's your handle. That's what you get. Earliest drills, corner bit braces. And these tools, these would have been used by linemen inside, outside in the 1880s, 1890s. These are the tools that our founders would have used. and their work throughout the country.
And you have how much on, it's not on display, brother, in your archives?
We have a storage area that probably houses a good 80 to 90% of our collection. Like with any museum, you try to showcase your best objects on exhibit, and our exhibit represents probably 10% of our collection. We have about 2,600 objects in our collection, and we have about 200 to 300 on display in the exhibit.
So, and that's for that, you think, for that center table, for the rotating part of it, maybe?
Yeah, everything
That's
on the
really
walls is fairly permanent. You know, the stories aren't going to change. Really, I mean, the timeline will be expanded in the history section, but in terms of the themes that are expressed in the museum, those are pretty stable. The middle section is where we'll try to showcase some unique stories and bring out some unique objects from storage to show our membership when they come to visit.
Well, Curtis, it's been great, and
I hope so. I hope it was entertaining.
yeah.
Anyone,
and we're coming back
listening?
tomorrow.
Yes, you are.
Sorry.
Yes, and maybe there'll be another one.
So
Sequel. But anyone watching, feel free. This is your building. The international office is open Monday through Friday. Anytime, come on in, and you'll get a tour of the building, and you'll see the museum firsthand. And I'd be happy to show you around.
And you've been a great help for us as we've evolved the program for the Henry Miller Museum in St. Louis, and we appreciate all your assistance
You're very welcome.
along the way, and we're learning a lot today, so thank you
Certainly
very
an
much.
important part of our history, and we are very happy the Local One has decided to spearhead the effort and preserve it for electricians and their families for generations to come to enjoy and see the story of Henry Miller and what it took to give us our great union that's here today. So,
Thank you.
thank you, John.